This man is a nine-tailed fox. Today, he's picking up a human girl named Li Dan from school for the first time. He laid a blanket on the car seat. He was worried the girl might get cold. Everything was ready. He waited in the car for the girl to appear. Soon, someone knocked on the car window. The man thought it was Li Dan, but it turned out to be another nine-tailed fox woman. The female fox rudely got right into the car. She even used the blanket the man had prepared. From the man's expression, the female fox guessed he wasn't here to pick her up. The female fox reminded him that when nine-tailed foxes fall in love, it never ends well. If you let feelings get in the way of what matters, you'll regret it later. At that moment, Li Dan was walking toward the car in the distance. The man told the female fox to stop talking and get out. The female fox excitedly said she wasn't getting out, but Li Dan was getting closer. The female fox was still touching up her makeup. Just as Li Dan opened the door, the female fox suddenly disappeared. It turned out the female fox was still putting on makeup while saying just drop me off at the hotel. She turned her head and found herself outside the car. This was extremely embarrassing for her. She couldn't believe the man would use magic on her just for this girl. Li Dan happily got into the car. This scene was witnessed by her best friend. Li Dan's good friend WangGege was very upset. When Li Dan tried to talk to him, he ignored her. WangGege said, "You're not a real friend. I told you everything. I wasn't afraid to lose face and even told you about my ex-girlfriend. But you don't treat me like a friend." He left after saying that. Li Dan had no idea what he was talking about. For the next several days, WangGege ignored her. Li Dan couldn't take it anymore. She called WangGege and told him to explain himself, but WangGege just hung up on her. The nine-tailed fox man eavesdropping outside the window nearly lost his human form from shock. After dinner, the nine-tailed fox asked Li Dan if the fox bead inside her body was troubling her. Of course Li Dan was distressed about this issue. She asked if he'd found a way to remove the bead. The nine-tailed fox said nothing. Li Dan asked if he still hadn't found a way. The nine-tailed fox said yes, he hadn't found it yet. Actually, he was lying. He knew the method but wouldn't tell her. WangGege was also feeling terrible at this moment. Then he heard students nearby saying the senior really messed up this time. The senior had bragged that a girl like Li Dan would be easy to win over. Now he was voluntarily admitting defeat and paying out 100,000 won. This showed Li Dan's standards were indeed high. Hearing this, WangGege couldn't hold back anymore. He found the senior and grabbed him by the collar. WangGege demanded to know if he'd made a bet about Li Dan with others. The senior answered that he'd already reflected on it, which is why he stopped. He asked WangGege not to tell Li Dan, but WangGege said don't tell Li Dan. He didn't want to see Li Dan hurt, but with all this commotion, Li Dan couldn't help but hear. It turned out the senior had truly fallen in love with Li Dan. He wanted to win Li Dan back. Li Dan told him not to bother. Just treat it as a joke and move on. The senior sincerely apologized and asked her not to be angry. Just then, two friends came looking for the senior. Their eyes were full of hostility. They pulled Li Dan away, but the trouble wasn't over. Recent news had been continuously reporting frequent disappearances. When found, their internal organs had been removed. The female fox realized something was wrong. She called the nine-tailed fox man and said the recent cases didn't seem to be done by humans. She told him to look into it, as it might be related to nine-tailed foxes. The nine-tailed fox hung up the phone. He felt something bad was about to happen.